Once upon a time, in a room full of wonders, where every step leads to magic, and the journey of a true story begins here, with amazing guests and true miracles. Please like and subscribe for more amazing videos.
Well, welcome and guten tag. And to your audience, whoever is listening, may you enjoy this story. All right, for the audience who hasn't seen my story yet or known about my book, the book is called There Are No Lines in Heaven, and it comes from my story of my two near-death experiences. The first one occurred when I was 17 years old and just out of high school, just literally graduated high school, and my dad, who worked in the Bronx, bought me a used car. A 1968 Mercury Montego, all white with some pinstripes, black Landau roof, 302 under the hood, under the engine. A 302 engine under the hood, and big bench seats, the old-fashioned bench seats. They weren't bucket seats in those days, and they were in red. And I was going to go fishing because I had never been fishing in my life. And so my friend Lou invited me to go to Lake Opatcon on the New York-New Jersey border, and I was going to use this car as my first drive to, quote, break in the car. And as I picked him up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's June day, I got onto the freeway, I entered Route 80, and the sign said, next exit downtown Paterson. That's Paterson, New Jersey. As I got onto the exit, I looked down, I was feeling kind of strange, and I saw through my hands, literally saw right through my hands. And I said, if this is death, there's nothing to be afraid of. The police report would indicate that I would drive 23 miles. I had no recollection of what occurred. And all I knew is suddenly, for a split second, I would be pulled back into my body, find myself in the passenger's compartment, stuffed down underneath the glove compartment, and the door opened and I fell out and my head hit the boot of a New Jersey State Super Trooper, highway patrol officer. And he said, he's DOA. I left my body, went into a tunnel. You hear that story a lot with people who've had near-death experience. I went into a tunnel, and as I was coming up off the planet, my guardian angel stopped me and said, before we go, turn around and take a look at the earth and tell me what you see. And I saw lines coming up, streams of golden light coming up off the earth towards an invisible cloud that was around the planet. Some were really tiny and thin, and others were really wide, like a tree trunk. And he said, do you know what those are? And I said, no. And he said, those are prayers. The small, thin ones are individual prayers, and the big ones are people praying for the same thing or same person. I said, oh, that's nice. And he said, we got to go now. And suddenly, I was back in this tunnel again, and we were zipping on down the road towards heaven. When I reached the pearly gate, so to speak, I met my grandfather, who I'm named for. His name was Samuel. And I'm named Scott Gordon, but I took his Hebrew name, Sholom Gershon. And when I arrived at the gates, he said, you can't stay here. You don't belong. You have to go back. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life. I said, okay. But he said, before you go, I have someone for you to meet. So he took me into a small room, and there were three beings. One with his back towards me, with wavy brown hair, a little bit smaller than me. The person or being in front of him was Michael the Archangel. Another being was to the right of Michael, to my left. I didn't recognize the angel. I didn't know who he was. And the being would turn around. I said, are you the being everybody calls Jesus? And he smiled, and I knew immediately, my heart got warm, that I had this big, warm feeling, fuzzy feeling, that I knew he was it. He said, I'm called by many names, but because of your heritage, my family is in the line of David, and we're actually related to Aaron of the Bible, Moses would have been my uncle, 792 times removed. And Aaron, the high priest of the Hebrews, the Israelites, would have been my grandfather, also 792 times removed. And he said, I will call you the little prince of peace, and you can call me big brother. But you can't stay here. You don't belong. You haven't fulfilled your purpose and missions in life. And that's when the third being, who I didn't know, chimed in and said, you will learn a simple technique to heal yourself and share that with other people. I said, okay. And then Jesus would say, hey, you got to go back now. And I'm like, shoot. And I took my right hand and I slapped my left palm. The next thing I know, I was being drawn back into my body. Now, simultaneously, my parents were called by the highway patrol. And this man that pronounced me dead on arrival actually spoke to them. And he said, please come identify your son's body. So Mom and Dad got in the car and drove to the hospital there in Patterson. It was St. Joseph's, the old hospital in Patterson, New Jersey. And as my dad went to stop the car by the emergency room, my mom said, no, don't park here. Let's go to the back of the hospital. And they drove to the back, and in the back is where the morgue is. And so they parked the car, walked through the doors, but nobody was there. And it was a dark hallway. And they saw someone way down at the end of the hallway pushing a body covered up, and it was on a gurney, and he was pushing the body into the morgue door where it said refrigeration unit. So they went down, they went to ask, where's my son's body? As they got close to this man, he was wearing scrubs just like this, a little bit darker blue. And he vanished. And my mom and dad wouldn't tell me this for a couple months because I had even asked. I said, Mom, Dad, why didn't we ever get a bill from the emergency room? And she said, because they didn't put you in the emergency room. They put you in the morgue. Anyway, as he disappeared and they couldn't figure out what happened, they figured, well, it was a dark hallway. Maybe he just turned, and at the same time, Mom and Dad just didn't notice. They came over to take a look at this body, and they pulled the sheet off, and there I am. I sat up. Mom, Dad, I met Grandpa, I met God. And they said, son, you had a head injury. You had an accident. Come with us. I said, okay. And as I went to get off the table, I went, oh man, I have a bad headache. They grabbed one arm and then the other. Mom grabbed one arm, and Dad helped me hop off the table. And they took me down the hallway, and they put me in the back of the car where they drove me home because I was feeling really bad at this point. The next day, Mom and Dad drove me to Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx. It was just down the block from Yankee Stadium and where my dad worked at Jerome Volkswagen on Jerome Avenue. And the doctor there, Dr. Barry Ludwig, didn't know what to make of me. He said, I'm not exactly sure what's happened to you. I can't explain it. But your DMT levels or your dimethyltryptamine are just off the charts. And for somebody who had a really bad head injury and neck injury, you're doing pretty good, but we can't explain exactly what happened. And he handed me a book written by Raymond Moody that had just been published called Life After Life. And I read about it and I said, oh, wow, that sounds like my story. Anyway, long story. I was kind of out of it for a while. I took the summer off before I went on to go to college. I was supposed to go to the U.S. Military Academy. Actually, I was supposed to go to the Naval Academy. And that changed. I was no longer accepted by the military at that point. I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps because he was an officer. He was a pilot of bombers in World War II. And right about the time of the Berlin airlift, if you remember your parents talking about the Berlin airlift, Danielle, my dad was supposed to be one of the pilots, the candy bombers. But because of the outbreak of the Korean War, Dad was given a choice, either fly bombers over Korea or quit. And so he quit. But he was supposed to be one of those people that were the transport pilots for food and coal. I'm sure that your mom and dad must have told you that as a kid, about how the American pilots came to save the day when Berlin was walled off and behind the Iron Curtain. So that was what I wanted to follow in my father's footsteps and become a pilot. I eventually would be a pilot, but not for the military. All right, long story short, the being who told me that I would learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people, he called it Einstellen, or tuning into the source, asking for help and healing. And I think one of the things that attracted you to my story was because I knew a German word. And Einstellen is a very popular word, and the only time I ever heard that word ever listed was in an old movie called Sergeant York with Gary Cooper, 1943. And the German officers who are being told, quit, become a prisoner, stop fighting, surrender, was when the German major says to the rest of his crew, Einstellen, Einstellen, which also means pay attention, listen up. And that was the only time I ever heard that word ever before. All right, fast forward. I, after this accident, went to college at Southampton in Long Island. Got done with that because I couldn't afford to stay there. It was $100 a credit in those days. And I decided I was going to go to the local university by me. At that time, it was called Montclair State College, and it became Montclair State University in northern New Jersey, just outside of New York City. I would go on after that. I would become a chiropractor. Then I'd go to Israel. I would become a medical examiner. I would come back to the United States, and I would work for the state of California Division of Workers' Compensation as a medical evaluator. And so I became a court doc. I went and became a pilot on my own and was learning how to practice takeoffs and landings at high altitude at cold weather up in Lake Arrowhead, California in the San Bernardino mountain range one December as I was preparing to take a flight for the court from Long Beach up to Sacramento to track down a client to then do a review and then bring it to the court that next morning in review of a case. So that's what I was practicing for. As I came off of the lake, we went up to 12,000 feet, and I suddenly got very lightheaded, very similar to what had happened to me when I was 17 years old. And I looked down and, man, I was not feeling good and could see through my hands again. Thank goodness I was with a flight instructor, Lisa, who would work for the California Department of Fire. It would be the California, I think they're called CFA or CAF was the name of it, the California Fire Department for the air, for putting out fires long range. She would become a pilot for them. Long story short, though, because I nearly passed out, she pushed the plane down, got me to an altitude where I could breathe again. I regained consciousness. We flew to Long Beach, where I got out of the airplane, and now I had to drive home. And California Highway Patrolman saw my car because it had a sticker on it, because I used to work with the police departments there. And he said, "You need help?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm not feeling so good." So he helped me get to the exit where I needed to go to have my flight exam. I was due for a flight exam anyway. And as both a medical examiner or a medical evaluator and working with getting my flight exam done, I went and stopped in where the doctor took my blood and he did an exam and said, "You're bleeding internally, and I'm going to send you to USC Medical Center, what people call a general hospital." If you ever see Guiding Light or General Hospital or these soap operas, that's the hospital where they film the gate opening. So I had to go to that hospital, and I got to work with two doctors that I knew, and both of them said, "We don't like what we see, and you have to take our medicine and therapy or you're probably going to die." And I said, "No, doc, if I take your medicine, I would die. So I'm going to go down to Mexico and learn some things from the Gerson Institute and Hulda Clark." In between, they sent me in for internal scans, upper and lower GI, and they accidentally overdosed me on fentanyl. And I came out of my body and I floated above my body, called a veridical experience or a veridical near-death experience. And I saw the doctor and the nurse talking about things and wearing the same kind of shoes. I was floating above them. And a being came next to me, which I figured was another angel. And I asked, could I go home now? My body's pretty messed up. And they said, no, you still can't go home. You have to fulfill your purpose and missions in life. And I said, what is my mission and purpose in life? And they reminded me what they had told me up in heaven the first time. I will learn a simple technique to heal myself and share that with other people. This technique is called Einstellen. It's very simple, yet very powerful. Well, I didn't exactly understand exactly what I was supposed to do, but somebody showed up just the day after my birthday and said God had sent them to me to help learn a simple technique to heal myself. Would I be interested? And her name was Ingrid from Vienna, Austria. And I said, where you been? I've been waiting for you. The angels told me that about a month ago. And she laughed. And I learned how to do Einstellen. And within 3 days, I started to receive my first of 3 healings in 3 weeks. And then I said, wow, Father God, if this keeps up, I'll be completely healed in a year. And then I heard a big voice, hold it, wait a minute, time out. You got work to do. And my lessons really began at that point. My ego and greed went out the window. The things that you learn as a doctor, out the window. And the realization that I was here to learn this technique and share that with other people, to help other people heal. And it would take another 3 years before I would have another help in healing. When I was in the middle of an MRI, I was having tremendous back pain. And nothing was taking away the pain. And I really didn't know what was happening to me. So I asked my mom and my dad near my birthday in that year, please, even in the middle of a rainstorm, please take me to the lady that does my radiology. And she did. They took me there on a wet day, waited for me. And there I was in an MRI machine when the doctor stopped the MRI, pulled me out and said, I don't know what you're complaining about. I've never seen anything like this. I have your 4 previous MRIs for the last 10 years, and this is the first time I've ever seen you 80% improved over your last MRI. What are you doing? And I told her how I was doing this technique called Einstellen. And she said, wait a minute, time out. If I talk to you about God and healing, the state of California will take my license away. I said, who's going to tell? She said, somebody will hear and I'll be in trouble. And that's when I learned that the state of California no longer accepted God as a form of cure. Only MDs could cure. I said, no, MDs don't mean major deity. MD means medical doctor. Going back really fast, when I came back from Mexico, I'd been at the Hilda Clark's Institute, Cure for All Cancers, Cure for All Diseases. And I had also been at the Gerson Institute, where they do coffee enemas. And the Gersons were from Germany. And I went back up for a review with my doctors at USC Medical Center. And lo and behold, they couldn't find anything wrong with me. And they said to me, oh, we must have made a mistake, a misdiagnosis. And I said, you do realize you're talking to a former medical examiner and medical evaluator? And the doctor shut up. They lost my file. One doctor died, the other doctor retired, and the third doctor was still a complete idiot and said you can only heal with our medicine and nothing else. I wanted to punch him, but since he was 7 foot 1 inch tall, the biggest doctor I had ever seen, I could only reach his belly button. So I had to go out and I had to go do prayers and do Einstellen. Lo and behold, I would start a PMA, or a private membership association, a 508c1a theocentric eleemosynary, a spiritual charity of one, a church of one. That's what my church is called, the Church of One. And I would begin to assist other people. People have been written off by the medical community. And about a third of the people I work with, I have about 12 weeks to work with them. And if I hear the words, touch not my child, that usually means they're going to go home and I can't do anything to help them. I can't stop it. So I have to prepare those people for their crossing over. So I'm there for them and their families. The second group of people are told there's nothing more we can do for you. That's all we can do. There's nothing more we can do for you. And the clients that I work with, for those people, well, they'll live 4 times longer on an average. That's just an average. So if they're told they got 2 years to live, they could live 6 or 8 years into the future. And then there's a third group who will receive miraculous astonishments, healings of all sorts and kinds. Now, I don't do any of it. I don't claim any of it. God is the greatest physician, and there is no incurable. There's only people who just don't have faith in God, trust in a being that's higher than them, or believe in their own self. And that's where I teach them about their purpose and missions in life. For instance, we live in a dichotomous world between good and evil. God gave this planet to all the evil in the universe and put them right on this planet. They're not only spiritual evil, there's evil aliens, 52 races of beings that come to visit this world. But we also have angels and good guys from other worlds. And they come to help us just as much as the bad guys try to harm us. Again, all the evil in the universe is put on this world. Our job is to master this reality, endure, persevere, and overcome it. But the problem is most people can't wake up. They have no idea. So we're either starseed children who came from other worlds and volunteered to come to this world because it was going to be a tougher job here, or we know we come from heaven, like the near-death experience people, and they know that home is heaven and not this planet, and we volunteer to come to help other people. Now, one of the biggest questions people ask me, can anybody have a near-death experience? And the word is no. It has to be pre-programmed from the factory. You have to have that pre-programmed before you come to this world. Well, does that mean that if you die and you don't have that pre-programmed, you're going to die? Yep. It also means you're not to commit suicide unless it's pre-programmed from the factory. And about only 2% of all suicides are actually pre-programmed in heaven. In other words, people actually volunteer to commit suicide to save someone else in some other way. So it's not a bad thing. But 98% of all suicides were never supposed to have happened. And they have to be prayed out of their place of hiding, so to speak. Either they're afraid to go home because they've made a mistake, or their purgatory that they created is sitting in the middle of the moon someplace. And the purgatory and the hell that they created is not a hot, burning place. It's a cold, void of God place. And therefore they have to be prayed out. We're also told from the other side, never hate anyone or anything. Hatred will cause you to be reincarnated in the next life in the one thing you hate. So there's going to be a lot of Israelis coming back as Palestinians and a lot of Palestinians coming back as Israelis. There's going to be a lot of Ukrainians coming back as Russians and Russians coming back as Ukrainians. The same thing with China and Taipei, Taiwan. It's got to stop. Don't hate anybody or anything in this reality. Simply master it. Well, how do we do that? There's people in the game of life that are in the parade of life. There are people in the grandstands watching the parade of life go by. And then those that are awake and wanting to grow and become a fourth and fifth dimensional being and get out of this matrix, they're going to step back and they're going to watch the whole game unfold. Well, how do you help yourself become a fourth and fifth dimensional being? Stop drinking fluoridated water. Make sure you have filters on your water. Stop taking medicine that affects your pineal gland. You see, evil knows that if it affects your pineal gland, it will affect your DMT level. Here, if we listen to evil, we'll be stuck here and we won't grow and evolve. See, religion is something that's not accurate. There are no lines in heaven because when you get there, everybody's welcome. But in this world, evil gets in between and creates this dichotomy between people. Oh, this religion is better than this religion, and this one's better than this one, and this is the only religion. No. And I'll use Mr. Brown that I use in the book. He was one of my clients from the Gerson Institute. I said, why are you hiring me, Mr. Brown, to come and help you with the Gerson Institute, all the different things he had to do, the juicing, the coffee enemas? And he said, I'm a devout Christian, and we were told in my sect of Christianity that only Christians went to heaven or they were first in line in heaven. I said, that's funny. I've been up in heaven twice. Nobody ever told me that. So he did eventually have a near-death experience, came back, and shared the following story about this. Actually, it was the angel that shared the story. On the day of his death, the angel came and appeared to me and said, there are no lines in heaven when you reach the pearly gates. No Christians in the center, Jews to the left, or Muslims to the right, for you are all children of God and you're all welcome. And then the angel went on to laugh how silly human beings are, that they've destroyed each other and this planet 6 previous times, and they're on the way of doing it a 7th time. The biggest thing is we're all children of God, and these bodies, doesn't matter what skin color, what religion, what language, what nationality, doesn't matter if you're a man or you're a woman, we're all children of God. And we wear these bodies as examples, as tests, because this is how we're going to experience life. You came back as a twin. There should be no reason to hate anybody. And one of the biggest things is you're also not here for greed or ego. You're simply here to help one another. So tell me, Daniela, you and your sister are very close. You know that if something happens to your sister, you feel it. And for those that don't know, before I actually got on to talk and tell my story, Daniela and I were talking about her family, her sister, and different things. And she's had out-of-body experiences and shared death experiences. And that's what brought her to doing what she does so that people like myself can share their message with the rest of the world. There's out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and shared death experiences. And how they tell the difference, according to the National Institutes of Health, is a person with a near-death can be identified by the levels of DMT or dimethyltryptamine being higher permanently. And they average about 20% higher than the average person. What is DMT? Both an hallucinogen and a painkiller that's manufactured by your brain and is pumped out by your pineal gland. So evil wants to destroy the pineal gland so you can't grow, evolve, or gain your consciousness. But you can do it with meditations, frequency, and learning how to do Einstellen. Einstellen. Tuning into the source and asking for help and healing. The other thing, go out in nature. The more you're out in nature, the higher your DMT levels. The more you forgive people, eliminate overwhelm, and get rid of fear, the higher your DMT levels. As a matter of fact, evil wants to control us through the media, so they want to control the world. They want your soul. Evil feeds off the soul by making you afraid. So if it can keep you in a constant state of fear and overwhelm, anger, rage, resentment, and not letting you forgive, well, it's going to keep controlling you. And in the next 5 years, you're either going to bring heaven to earth or hell to earth. But I don't know about you. I don't want hell on earth. Do you? I want heaven to earth. And that means being conscious and aware. 70% of the planet can't wake up no matter what. It's not part of their human design. If God stood in front of them, ain't going to happen. My brother and sister, for instance, that's not part of their life. They look at me as like, I'm a weirdo. I don't understand you. How can you do this? Until one day, my brother, the psychologist, his mentor told him, no, near-death experiences are real. And so he actually apologized for all the other misunderstanding and doing things he did for me over the years, or to me, and then said, I just not going to get it because it's not part of my reality. If you can see beyond that, you'll learn to forgive others. I teach people how to forgive, get rid of overwhelm, and let go of fear in 60 seconds. Then I teach them how to do Einstellen. I teach him the power of prayer to get evil away from them. I teach him how to push faint matter or negative dark energy away from them. And I help them eliminate the negative emotions that no longer serve them. So I still have to live on this earth. And I created a church. A 508c1a theocentric eleemosynary spiritual church of one between me and the big guy upstairs. And as a result, I help people through donations. I have specific requests that I have. After this, I'll be traveling to California, and I'll be doing lectures for the International Association of Near-Death Studies in Santa Barbara. I'll be doing some more podcasts. I'll be working with the University of North Carolina Central on a podcast, and I'll also be at IANS in Seattle. The first IANS, or International Association of Near-Death Studies, was begun by Kimberly Sharp up in Seattle back in the 70s. We also work with Zoom and other platforms to help people. So if you want to contact me, if you're interested, if I can help you in any way, shape, and form, I also teach people how to do Einstellen for free every second Sunday. So twice a month on a Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, I teach people for an hour and a half how to do Einstellen in a group setting, free of charge. But I will also teach people how to do the things they need to do to help themselves heal. And that's a one-on-one session. That's something different. You can go to my website, https://therearenolinsinheaven.com. It's the name of my book. It's the name of my website. And you can set up a one-on-one session with me. Today, I'm a licensed religious counselor and a PhD, healing with and through God. You must have faith in God, trust in a being stronger and more powerful than us, and belief in your own divinity and your ability to heal, and that you were sent to this earth to do things without greed and ego. Now, my family, like I said, is multicultural, multinational, multi-religious, and so there's no hate in our family. Everybody loves everybody. We may not understand one another, but we appreciate and love one another. And you know that your sister's your best friend, and you're going to do anything you can to help her. Am I correct? You actually were talking about the fact that you want to see your sister do well, do better. The fact that we must wake up. There literally is a deadline. Bring heaven to earth within the next 5 years. I don't like the other option. And we're going to do that by waking up each individual person, one person at a time, till we have enough of us waking up that the people who can't wake up won't recognize anything has transpired or happened. They'll just know that it's a nicer place to live. It's better to be kind than right. And so it doesn't matter what your background is. Stop creating division between people and create unity where we can work together as children of God to bring heaven to earth. And remember, love is the answer. Why? God is love. We are children of that God creator, and therefore we are children of love, and that we must share that with others to be creative. Having children is a creative process with God, creating, but we must remember who we are. And believe it or not, when we have tough times, we've actually volunteered to go through it. One thing to know, if anybody tells you you're here to suffer, they're lying. You're not here for karma, and you're not here for suffering. You are here to struggle. You are not here to suffer. Just like a butterfly that must struggle to push its way out of the cocoon, if you were to cut the cocoon, that butterfly would die. It needs the struggle to make it stronger. But if anybody tells you you've got to suffer, no, walk away from that person. You're never made to suffer. Forgive as much as you can. Stop the overwhelm. Let go of fear and anxiety, and change how you believe. Because as you believe, so you shall achieve. Break it. And sometimes we're not strong enough to break the old bad habits. So you need energy to do that. And I don't claim to be the healer. God is the greatest physician. There is no incurable. God is the healer. I am simply here how to show you can connect to God, and God will help you heal directly. You don't need to go through a doctor. I just happen to be a doctor that knows spiritual things. And I think the best doctors are the ones who've been the patients. Have patience with the C than to be the patient with the T. And that was specifically told to me. And I write about that and the 36 things that the angels have told me over the years. So, if you want to know about all these wonderful things, because this book never stops, it's in its 3rd edition. I'm working on the 4th edition. When you believe, anything is possible. You have to have faith in the Creator, belief in your own self and your divinity and ability to heal, and trust that there's a being stronger and more powerful than us that can help us if we just listen. It's all up to the audience. Is there something we can do to help you? I'm here to help as many people as possible. We really do have a deadline, folks. Literally down the road. Are you going to bring heaven to earth or the other way around? If I make a choice in the future, do you want to live in a city that's completely controlled, a smart city, and be told what you can and can't do, what you can and can't think? Or a unified one world religion? Or are you going to just divinely connect to God through the spirituality and create something that's separate and above? Are you going to have the courage to do something different from the standard of medicine? Are you going to go into alternatives? Or are you going to look to God for the answers for everything? Because God does have the answers to everything. And the answer begins with love. Love of self, love of the fellow human being around you, love of thy neighbor more than thyself. So, again, my name is Dr. Scott Robinson. My book is There Are No Lines in Heaven. It's the same as the website. All right, you can also contact me directly. Oh my gosh, I can get a hold of this guy through WhatsApp or text me 760-917-2625. Again, 760-917-2625. But I do have a particular request. Please don't text me and say, hey, I want a session, or hey, I want to learn how to do Einstellen. Tell me who you are. Also, don't tell me everything that's wrong with you. I don't want to know everything that's wrong with you. And as a result, just simply say I'd like a session one-on-one, go to the website, or text me and say, Dr. Robinson, can we chat? Can we have a private session? Or can I learn to do this Einstellen? And sure, but give me a little heads up. And nothing is a punishment. We are not here as a slave planet. If somebody tells you that and you believe it, you're going to be stuck on the wrong side. We are on a schooling planet whose job is to teach us the most important things to grow up and become closer to the Creator. So which do you choose? A schooling planet where we're in the worst neighborhood in the universe and our objective is to grow more than anybody else and to become closer to the Creator? Or if you believe that this is a prison planet, God bless you. Maybe next lifetime you'll wake up. And this, by you doing what you do, Daniela, for you, your sister, and your families, you're changing the reality one person at a time. So thank you for today's opportunity. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you're welcome. God bless to everybody out watching. God bless to everybody. And speak to you soon.